This morning we're going to continue our series on the AT-ATs, and one quick point to make, because we're not going to cover all of them, is that if you need to get access to them, you can, if you have IntelliSense enabled, you can select AT-AT and then go through these processes. I'm sorry, these AT-ATs here. So, as a case in point, since we're not going to cover all of the ones, you can go through those on your own time. But I'm going to cover the ones that are really commonly used, or that I commonly used, I should say, because it does depend on your environment. In some people's environment, they're going to use some, and some of them they never touch. So, all right. So the first one we're going to discuss today is the identity one. I'm going to note this down because otherwise I'll lose it. And identity is, if you're using SQL Server 2012, it may kind of go by the wayside in the sense that it's not, let's just do iTable. It's not very efficient in the sense that it can, or it is efficient, but it's not accurate in the sense that if you use an identity, which I'm going to show you right now, and we've used this before, it has a bug in it where it'll skip values. And so, obviously, if you're kind of like me, you don't want values to be skipped, especially if it's important for you to order items. So I do a lot of algorithms where I have to have things in order 1 through whatever, and it's not okay to have it skip. So some people, it doesn't matter. So there's a database that I work at with one of my clients, I should say, and they use the ID field, but it doesn't matter. It can skip 100 values. They don't care. But some companies, that's not okay, and so what happens in SQL Server 2012 is we have access to sequences, and sequences are really awesome. Now this is 2008, so we're not going to be covering sequences, but that's what's, in my opinion, a better tool than identities. And okay, so last identity of first insert. Okay. Or actually, let's just do this, first insert. Okay. And let's look at this. So, one second, and that's not going to make actually much sense at the time until we put this other one over here. And let's do 5, and then let's do 0. So it's like we're skipping values here. Okay, so and then we're going to copy and paste this. So what identity is returning is the ID field of the insert. So if we were to if we were to do select star from I, and we were to then do, select star from I before here, and let's look at this, you'll notice it's returning the last identity insert. So the ID field here on our first insert is 1, and then we have the identity field on our second insert, the last identity is 3. So why is that important? Well, because it goes back to tracking. We would like to track what items are being inserted, or what's the identity of the last insert, if we want to, for instance, let's just give an example, check and make sure that the next insert it's incrementing by 1. The other thing too as well is you might want the identity of the last insert for tracking purposes. This is the reason why I would switch over to using sequences. Chances are, if you're looking for this, then the sequence of what you're doing is actually important. Exceptions to the rule may exist. So that's the identity. That's very useful. I've seen that a lot, but like I said, in 2012, I expect to see less of that just because I think sequences are a lot better. Okay, so the next one is the proc ID, and if we do proc ID, of course, it should return nothing. Oh, of course, it does return something, but give me just 1 second, create procedure. And in the previous video, we discussed nest level on procedures. This is where proc ID can be very helpful. Made proc as begin, select proc ID. this is one of these that's very hard to do if you don't have multiple procedures. So I misspelled. So that is the ID of the procedure, and we can prove that by creating another stored procedure called madeUpProc that's spelled correctly. And notice this value here, and then notice that value here. The other where you can get that as well is if you do select select star from sys.procedures. Let's look at this, and then we're going to do where name like this right here. Oh yeah, that would make sense. I'm like, let me just do this. Okay. And then let's look at this again. And you will see this is the procedure ID. So we're looking at the object ID of the procedure on that. So why is that important? Again, with nested procedures, like we did the other day, if you're trying to check if you have a procedure that executes after a procedure, after a procedure, after a procedure, after a procedure, it can be useful to track the object ID. It's also useful for an if-then statement. Instead of looking at the name of the procedure, if this procedure executed, then this, you can also look at the ID of the procedure. So that's also very useful. Okay, and then of course there's the one that's very useful too, is the SPID. Now I don't know what you can see on this video, but you should see SQL, hold on, it just went away. You should see a little pop-up thing, SQL Express Client Marketing Timothy/Timothy Smith 54. That is the transaction number, for lack of a better word, and that relates to the actual query that's being run. Like this entire screen here is an actual process. It's a transaction in a sense, for lack of a better word, and you can find this detail here in SPWho. There's 54. This is me right here. Okay, so this is a SPID, and as a case in point, so this is 54. Let's go ahead and let's open up a new query, and let's copy this. So this is 55, so we should get 55 back. So why is that important? Again, this is very useful in testing. This is very useful if you have a query that's having issues. In later videos, we're going to be discussing fast in application, or fast in SQL Server Management Studio, slow in the application. So that's a debugging problem that happens from time to time, where you have a process that's lightning speed in SQL Server Management Studio, but in the application it's incredibly slow. Well, of course, if you have a bunch of concurrent transactions at the same time, you kind of need to know which one's which, and so this can be very useful for tracking purposes, as well as getting the transaction number. So those are three: identity, procedure, proc ID, and SPID. These two will still be useful going forward. Again, if you really need to know all the identity information, especially the last one you inserted, I think what you'll find in 2012 is that sequences will work a lot better.